Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Bretonnians are pulling out all the stops as the undead march forward, and the Royal Hippogriff Knights will take to the skies to contend the incoming threat, as we have Consul of Rome on the Bretonnians, and in Fury will be on the Vampire Counts. So for the Bretonnians, it is going to be peasant mobs for that front line, and then on the sides we do have some Grail Knights on one flank. Center ranks is going to be a bunch of men-at-arms backed up by some peasant bowmen with fire arrows. Going to be getting just a little bit extra damage, and that flaming attacks against some of the regenerating units, such as like Vargals, for example. These guys will do quite nicely in that regard. In the center ranks, we also have the Holy Wardens of La Maisontel, as they do have fire and magical attacks, which again, very helpful against the counts themselves. And for the hero character, we do have a Felix. He is going to be rolling in with Blood Oath, so he is going to be giving +8 regen to himself and to any lords or heroes in an AoE centered around himself. And of course, he is also armor piercing and bonus versus infantry, so if you are kind of worried about Vlad, he can do all right, but normally you are going to be seeing paladins in that slot. In the back ranks, we have the Knights of the Lionhearted, the Knights of the Realm ROR, so they do have magic damage themselves. Some more Grail Knights on the far flank, and it is going to be the Fey Enchantress for the Lord. She is going to be bringing the Earthblood. We have Flesh to Stone, which gives +60 armor. So in those cav engagements, or just in most engagements in general, you'd pop that on. It's going to be able to allow them to just tank a lot more damage, especially when you're pretty much going to be expecting to be seeing some Blood Knights on the other side. We have Favor of the Fae as well as the Chalice of Potions, which is the Comet Casadora bound ability, giving a nice little bit of chaff clearing tools to the Bretonnian roster. Otherwise, that's going to be it for the Bretonnians. As for the Vampire Counts, the front line is going to be a bunch of zombies to kind of counteract the peasant mob front line, so both sides have plenty of very cheap chaff infantry to be using, and they will be bringing plenty of those. We have the Dire Pack and some Blood Knights Roman on one flank. The Dire Pack do have bonus versus large themselves, as being the ROR. And then for the rest of the units, we do have a Blood Dragon Vampire Lord. The Blood Dragon is going to be bringing Helm of Discord. We also have, looks like Raise Dead, Invocation to Heck, and it does have one of its abilities being there he is, the Honor or Death, which gives +8 leadership and +11 damage resistance, and that is only when he is in melee, but still he is a Blood Dragon, so he most likely will be in melee. And of course, with that Helm of Discord, it is definitely going to be helping those engagements, specifically the cav ones. We have some Graveguard with great weapons with some Crypt Ghouls for that backline. We have a Necromancer in support with the Forbidden Rod, as well as the Master of the Dead, so a nice little passive healing. And it looks like that is going to be the Vigor Mortis, and the Unholy Lodestone, so even additional regen, so that's +2 on that one. And then the Claw of Nagash has its own regen, in top of having that kind of chilling aura, as well as having some damage or magic resist over the regular variant. And of course, being a Mortis engine, it's pretty good to just kind of slowly drain away the Bretonnians and their cavalry, though they do have to be mindful of all of the peasant fire coming in, because all that focus fire will bring that bad boy down. And in the sky, we have some Fellbats, and we have the Devils of Schwarzhofen, the ROR Vargeist, going to be rolling on in, trying to get a little bit of a presence in the air. But otherwise, I believe that is it for the Vampire Counts and the Bretonnians, so let's get things rolling, as both sides are going to be advancing upon one another on the field of battle. The cavalry for the mobility for the Counts kind of swinging a little wide, but they will be outmatched when it comes to that cav engagement. These nice Lionhearted, the Grail Knights on both flanks, going to be much more than these one unit of Blood Knights is going to be able to handle. So they're going to have to rely on winning that air battle. The Blood Dragon Vampire Lord is going to have his hands full, though, with those Royal Hippogriff Knights. They are a very fearsome foe. I mean, 135 armor piercing. They have 6,000 HP as well, 90 armor. So they are going to be a major threat, especially against, like, if they get their hands on these Devils of Schwarzhofen, they will be able to make kind of quick work with them. So really, the Counts need to work together in the air and need to be very mindful of those Royal Hippogriff Knights. These Dire Pack and the Blood Knights are going to be discovering some more troops in the forest, as some of these men-at-arms and the Fae are going to be kind of just pushing them out. Having these Grail Knights, of course, here to kind of deter their onslaught is going to be a problem on top of that, as all of the Peasant Bowmen, though, do open up upon that Blood Dragon Vampire Lord, getting a nice bit of damage in early on. Just some nice free damage as they just kind of wait out the approach of the Vampire Counts. We are going to be getting a little Earthblood here, healing up the Holy Wardens. I do believe there's a little breath attack that kind of went their way, So kind of counteracting that damage just a bit, as Felix is going to be wading forward here, ready to take the charge of the undead. And the Fellbats, Delta Schwarzhofen, going to be pushing these Royal Hippogriff Knights back into their own lines. Of course, that is nice and where they want to be. That's going to allow them to get that air support. One of the Fellbats, though, is going to drop down onto one unit of Peasant Bowmen, kind of just lessening the amount of fire coming up into the sky. A summon going down on the second one, and now the Blood Dragons and the Devils of Schwarzhofen going to be diving in, but these Devils of Schwarzhofen are taking a lot of damage early on. The Royal Hippogriff Knights are dishing it out, but they are taking some damage themselves. Now, there is going to be healing on both sides. Looks like there was going to be a spell, but luckily canceled just in the nick of time before wasting all those winds of magic. I don't know which side that was going to be casted on. We do get Flesh to Stone, though, on the Royal Hippogriff Knights. Going to be getting a nice little bit of extra armor, allowing them to tank through that Blood Dragon just a little bit better. But in the front line, the Claw of Nagash is just getting lit up by these Peasant Bowmen, and Felix as well is also doing some nice bit of damage to it, and down will go that Claw. Early on, losing that Mortis Engine is going to be quite a pain, but it is not over just yet. Balance Power is still dead even, but there is still plenty of units. The nice line here, all of these, like the Grail Knights, are going to be very hard for the Counts to deal with now, because that Mortis Engine was one of the good tools to deal with it. While the Blood Knights are sitting rather healthy, they are still going to be outmatched. We do have the Devil Schwarzhofen, they're going to be diving down in on top of them, getting onto the Knights of the Lionheart, getting some nice extra damage in, and the Grail, or the Royal Hippogriff Knights in the air once again going to be dueling that Blood Dragon, doing a nice bit of damage. That Blood Dragon is getting rather low already. He does have that Helm of Discord pop, so that is reducing that armor, or not the melee attack and melee defense. And we get a Chalice of Potions dropping right on top of these Graveguard with great weapons. A very nice cast there, as Felix is just kind of dueling out a few more of the surviving members of that assault. But now that the Devils of Schwarzhofen have taken to the skies, these Royal Hippogriff Knights are taking a bit more damage than I think they would probably like, and they just aren't landing as much hits as they were initially against that Blood Dragon. Blood Dragon is still sitting nice and healthy, and the Royal Hippogriff Knights are going to dive now down on top. They are going to be getting a nice hit into these Blood Knights, but the Blood Knights are bonus versus large, and so they will be getting some nice damage, and the Fey Enchantress is going to be locked in place here, surrounded by a lot of angry undead, and she is going to be taking a lot of damage here. Blood Dragon going to be sensing that blood in the water, trying to finish her off once and for all, as the rest of the Grail Knights are going to be trying to come to her aid, but she is going to be routing, and as long as she's able to route into her own unit, she might still be okay, but she is just getting stuck in with all of these units surrounding her. Those Blood Knights are keeping her nice and pinned in, so she is just going to be taking more and more damage, and the Blood Dragon Vampire Lord is still looking to kind of finish that job. Diving once again, I don't know if you want to necessarily be diving into all of these cavalry and these Royal Hippogriff Knights, but it does look like the Fae is going to be brought down, as she does finally end up shattering completely, and that is going to be a mighty blow to the Bretonnians, as they're going to be losing out on their healing and a lot of their spellcasting in general. So now that Blood Dragon Vampire Lord only really has to worry about these Royal Hippogriff Knights. The Blood Knights, though, have taken quite a bit of damage in that assault. Now they do need to stay nice and healthy. These Knights Lionhearted have taken a lot of damage themselves, and these Grail Knights are routed off, but we have another very healthy Grail Knight going to be coming right on into this blob, and they are going to be charging angry for blood as they get a nice charge into the rear of all this infantry, though for the most part I believe it's going to be missing most of the Blood Knights, but the Blood Knights are actually going to be kind of pushing forward, looking to engage them. I'm not sure if they necessarily want to be doing that. They definitely want to be getting that charge, but with that Helm of Discord still active, that they're going to allow them to trade just a little bit better. But for the most part, it is going to be infantry dominated on the Count's side. They still have a few units on the fringes here returning to the field. The Graveguard with great weapons will be able to kind of chunk through these Grail Knights a bit, but for the most part, the Blood Knights are still the best answer to them, and of course that Blood Dragon Vampire Lord will be able to get some nice chomps in of his own. While these Fellbats trying to shut down the Peasant Bowmen on the flanks, these Royal Hippogriff Knights are going to have a thing or two to say about that, as they are going to be able to kind of push these guys off, kind of freeing up all these Peasant Bowmen in the rear to continue getting some nice fire in. The Devils of Schwarzhofen have actually been able to heal cap themselves, as they are going to be kind of coming forward, and that's all been through healing. They don't have that regen that most, or at least some of the Counts units have, so lots of winds of magic going their way, and a nice little breath attack as well, going to be going right into those Peasant Bowmen, and it should be enough to rout them off, and that is exactly what happens. They do get routed, and the Dire Pack do jump on top of these men-at-arms, going to be causing them to rout, as the rest of the Graveguard do kind of file in, as they try to just kind of keep pushing all of the Bretonnians out of these engagements. The Royal Hippogriff Knights, unfortunately, do end up routing themselves, and the the Blood Knights are going to be standing very strong here, though they do have to deal with those Grail Knights who are going to be getting a nice little charge in, or at least trying to get a charge in for themselves. Looks like their attack order is getting a little confused as we get a summon on top of the Peasant Bowman, going to be shutting them down. But really, the Bretonnians need to finish off these Blood Knights. They are nice and low, and they are right in the reach of these Grail Knights, and they are going to be getting that charge in finally. Diving on top of the Blood Knights should be able to finish them off. The Blood Dragon is coming in to try and just get as much damage in as he can, and he actually gets some nice hits in, taking down some of those Grail Knights. But the Blood Knights, I think, are on their last legs, and even the Royal Hippogriff Knights have returned, but with the Fae gone, the healing is also gone for the Bretonnians. They had a lot of good targets for that heal, but the Blood Dragon is getting very low himself. He is getting low, surrounded by Grail Knights. The Royal Hippogriff Knights as well diving in, and for the most part, the Bretonnians have kind of forgotten about these Blood Knights here and are instead focusing entirely on that Blood Dragon, who is just trying to pull his way out of that engagement. He isn't crumbling just yet, and he is able to get out of that engagement, and he did actually delay these Grail Knights just long enough for them to take enough damage from those Blood Knights and ended up routing themselves and leaving those Royal Hippogriff Knights to try and finish the job, and they rout themselves with a summon of zombies dropping right behind them, giving enough leadership penalty there to force them back into the sky, and they may very well be done for the match, though they should be coming back. Though it looks like the Blood Dragon, thinking about chasing, is going to have second thoughts, as these Peasant Bowmen with fire arrows going to be making sure that Blood Dragon is going to have to stay a little honest, going to have to turn his attention to making sure he dodges these shots. Going to be getting a breath attack in at range, see if it does go off in time, and it looks like the breath was canceled. I think the just getting slightly out of range from getting that breath attack off. Gets a little bit closer, and this time it is going to be getting the breath attack off right into the middle of these Peasant Bowmen, doing a nice bit of damage, but at what cost? Because that Blood Dragon is still alive, still isn't crumbling just yet. He is sitting at only 86 HP. He is on danger low, and the Royal Hippogriff Knights are back, and they are looking to finish what the rest of their units have started, trying to finish off that Blood Dragon, and he is going to be running for the hills, does not want to have anything to do with those Royal Hippogriff Knights, and they are going to get a hit, and down goes the dragon, falling to the ground. And the balance power, though, is still in the Count's favor, even though they have lost their lord. These Grail Knights are quite low themselves, though they will be able to deal with that Necromancer just fine. And I think if the Bretonnians are just cautious enough and that they're able to kind of cycle charge, they have some units coming back. They have a decently healthy Men-at-Arms and Peasant Mob on that side, though the Counts still have a very healthy Graveguard, which has been forgotten, and more units still on the fringes for the Bretonnians. But as long as these Royal Hippogriff Knights get some nice charges in, they might be able to stay in the fight, but they cannot afford to rout. They've already routed twice so far, so one more time will be the last that they're going to be able to do. But they do take off just in the nick of time, and is going to be allowing the rest of the Men-at-Arms, Peasant Mob, and Felix himself to kind of continue wading through. He has reached his own healing cap, as he's been able to just slowly regen throughout the course of the fight, and the Grail Knights get a nice rear charge into the Necromancer, who himself has reached his healing cap. Though the Necromancer doesn't have any spells on it, he does have plenty of passive healing, so all like the Graveguard, the Crypt Hools, I mean, they've gotten a ton of healing themselves. You can even see how much healing they've had. With the Royal Hippogriff Knights just trying to finish off the last of this, and that will remove also a lot of the buffs, as Balance Power edges right back towards center, as they just continue to try and bring down that Necromancer, because if they are able to bring down the Necromancer, that will break, or at least reduce all of the stats of the rest of the units, and might just be enough to kind of finish the job, as all of these units are crumbling. That unit of Graveguard in the back is sitting very, very healthy, and definitely needs to kind of start coming in before all hope is lost for the Counts, because that Necromancer sorely needs a little bit of extra fresh infantry troops, as the Royal Hippogriff Knights are just having their way with these units left. But the Peasant Mobs are going to be shattering, losing a lot of the infantry support, but luckily the Men-at-Arms are able to come in and once again provide the support to those Royal Hippogriff Knights, who are doing rather well here in this late game. Nothing to really contend them. They just have to be mindful of staying engaged for too long against the Graveguard, because they are getting very, very low, as they get a nice charge in, able to get a few nice hits into these Graveguard, but really they need to finish off that Necromancer, get rid of all of the buffs, and he's just so low, he's crumbling. He's actually able to regain a bit of his leadership here, going back just to critical binding, and Felix is doing a nice job of kind of finishing off a lot of what is remaining of these Graveguard with great weapons, just kind of slowly whittling them down bit by bit. But these Royal Hippogriff Knights are wavering themselves, and they are getting very low. They lose one of their models, and away it shall go, shattered, and the last of the surviving Hippogriffs will fly off into the sunset, and with that, the Necromancer still survives. So it is going to be Graveguard versus the Felix here. There must be a few units left as these Graveguard finally remembered, going to be marching back towards the battle here, and some men-at-arms as well. So there is not a whole lot left, but that is a full health unit of Graveguard, and that is going to be very hard for like all these men-at-arms and even Felix to whittle down, because I mean, while Felix does have that bonus versus infantry armor piercing, he is at his healing cap now, so any damage at all dealt by that Graveguard is going to slowly bring him down, and his leadership isn't the best. He's sitting at 51 leadership at the moment with just being so tired. I mean, he is exhausted after all, and these Graveguard, they're going to be nice and fresh because they were forgotten, so they're going to be doing rather well, and Felix will get the charge in, and that is going to allow his men-at-arms to also get the charge, so denying those Graveguard, so getting every bit of advantage as they can. But these men-at-arms are not going to be lasting very long against Graveguard here in the late stages, and the Necromancer still alive and well, continuing to give that passive healing and all of those buffs to the Graveguard that are remaining, and these men-at-arms do end up routing, and that is just going to leave Felix standing tall amongst the rest of the undead. So it is going to be great weapon against great weapon. Felix trying as he might to kind of finish the job, but he himself is wavering. His leadership getting very low, trying to get at the Necromancer, but the Necromancer staying just out of his reach, and with that, he is going to rout, and that will be our match, a very close one at that. But let's take a look at the after battle report and see just how things did on both sides, but very well played on both sides, and a very close one in the end. So for the Vampire Counts, the Mortis engine unfortunately not doing well at all. Got sniped out really quickly by all of those peasant bowmen. And that just kind of goes to show just the pure focus fire from all those units. And Felix himself did some nice damage, but all the focus fire from the peasants can really bring down these units. So you have to be very mindful and you have to be very careful. So you have to almost try and deal with all of the peasant bowmen first before committing with that Mortis engine. Because once those all the peasant bowmen are dealt with, it is very hard for Bretonnia to bring down that Claw of Nagash. The Devils of Schwarzhofen did all right, getting 1,100. Dire Pack did very, very well, getting 1,400, more than paying for itself. Very well played with those guys. The Foulbat's doing okay, and then the one unit of Blood Knights, despite being pretty much all by itself in terms of those cav engagements, was able to trade exceptionally well, racking up 2,700 in total value. Graveguard with great weapons doing rather well, getting 1,300 on those guys. And then, I mean, the Crypt Ghouls themselves getting 1,200, so their infantry actually doing very well for the Counts. And then we have the Blood Dragon, which did decently, but still did not quite pay for itself. He is rather expensive being up on his dragon, but still all of those debuffs allowed it to do very well. And all things considered, he was up against Royal Hippogriff Knights, and he is a little outmatched when it comes to that engagement. So for the Royal Hippogriff Knights themselves, they almost got 3,000 in total value, and that is a 2,000 costing unit. So they still were able to get some nice bit of value, and they almost were able to bring down that Necromancer in the end, but unfortunately the Necromancer did survive, and with that staying alive, all of the rest of the Counts were able to just continue to drag down the rest of the Bretonnians. All of the rest of the cavalry for the Bretonnians doing some decent work. The peasant bowmen doing very well, 1,500, 1,600 on those, and then 1,000, so a lot of value done on all those peasants. And of course, the Counts are going to be healing up throughout the course of the fight, especially with that Necromancer and the Mortis engine giving so much passive healing. So that value is, of course, going to be inflated, but still, that is a ton of damage dealt by those guys. All of the men-at-arms not really doing as you would expect, as you would expect. And then Felix doing decent work, 972, and then the Fae got 2,000 despite getting sniped out rather early. And I think really that was one of the kind of key points. I mean, the Counts lost their Mortis engine and Bretonnia lost the Fae. But really, I think the Fae is kind of the bigger loss because you lose out on a Mortis engine as well, but you also lose out on all that healing. And the Royal Hippogriff Knights, they have so much healing that you can give them. And had they gotten just even 2-3 more Earthbloods, that would have been more than enough to really have kept them in that fight there in that late game, would have kept them with maybe even a few more, a model or two more. And yeah, I think that would have been all it took to kind of sway this battle the other way. But regardless, it was a very well-fought fight all the way down to the wire. But without further ado, we are going to wrap things up. I do hope you enjoyed the battle, and as always, have a good one.